Don't you love new tires? I do. They're great tires for Jess's truck. Small issue. Welcome back, disciples. It's going to be all kind of jumbled up, but it's because I've been busy. Let's go over what's going on. I was driving Jess's truck to go get some feed, and it made the most awful grinding noise ever. I mean, it was horrible. I was truly impressed by the sound it made. Jess's truck is a 94 Chevrolet C1500 that comes with the delightful 4L60E, which is the replacement for the 700 R4 transmission. And that's not her transmission. That is. The one I have gutted. The one I have taken apart. The one I've already found the problem with. Well, the kid sat there and said, "Dad, you need to make a video about this." And I said, all right. So here is part one, Disciple of the Wrench, how to dismantle, diagnose, and rebuild the 4L60E. Welcome back, disciples. Let's start this off with some fun. I'm not randomly just tearing down a 4L60E because I thought maybe there's something wrong with it. When I was driving it, it decided to what I would like to call shell itself. Out of nowhere, it turned around, just ground, made this horrible noise, and decided it no longer needed reverse, park, or a couple other gears, and that was just delightful. There are a couple common problems with the 4L60E, just like with any transmission, any motor, anything that's mass-produced. You will have problems. You will have issues. When you have issues, the easiest thing to do is just overcome, fix them, repair, and move on. Generally, that works. If you take care of something, you do a PMs, you make sure everything's getting taken care of. If you don't know what PM is, that's periodic maintenance. Change your filters, change your fluids, make sure it's running right. Don't abuse it. Don't make something in a vehicle that it can't handle what you've asked it to do. Say, heavy-duty work truck, and you put a stock transmission in it. You'll kill it. You put low-quality material into what needs to be a high-quality build, it's going to die. There's several things involved. Now, if you're going to diagnose a transmission, there are awesome things you can get. You can either buy them, which they're very expensive, or you can just rent them from stores now. That's an amazing thing. This one's my max set. And all this is, and ooh, yes, I keep my stuff clean. This is an oil pressure gauge and a temperature and a transmission pressure gauge set with all the fittings and everything comes with it. You can rent these. You go in here, you hook them up. You're able to get oil pressures, be able to figure stuff out. And there are these ports on the side of the transmission that if you go through your diagnostic, which if you ever want to know what those are, this is an ATSG, Automotive Transmission something, service group. And you can get these manuals. I mean, these are the factory rebuild manuals. They've got all the information in you need them. The diagnosis information, how to check pressures, line codes, go through it, everything. They are great. You need these. If you're going to do this kind of a build, you need this. Now, the Rev knows for a fact this thing died. I know because the parts shelled themselves. In fact, I've got that planetary set right here in this box because it decided to leave and never come back. This planetary set decided it needed to leave and it did not want to be around anymore. That broke, and the carrier in which it rides also shattered. And I mean, it decided to leave the planet completely. This is not one of the 4 common problems with a 4L60. Not at all. But if I were to diagnose something, slipping shifts, missing shifts, issues like that, I would check trouble codes first. I do line pressure checks, everything else before I get to the point where I'm pulling a transmission out and rebuilding the thing. We're not part swappers. Mechanics aren't mechanics, they're technicians. You find technical data, you dig down deep, you figure stuff out, you repair it. And if you want to be one, you don't throw parts at things. You figure out why, and you fix it. What I'm going to show you how to do is how to rebuild this thing with some common cheap tools. Now, I've got a couple specialty tools that I like to have. You can make your own, that's completely fine. I don't care what you do. I'm going to set this down real quick. I don't like to hurt my tools. Mind you, I just tore everything apart. Now I'm going through and doing it again. And I've got a manual conversion on flat top later. We'll get to that in another video. These may come out of sequence. I'm going to show some pictures right here. There's a cat named Luke Simons at Back to the Basics 101. And he's responsible for all of my free time being gone because I have been gleaming wisdom and being discipled by this man far, far away. And I have learned to make amazing fences for the Double T Ranch. But anyway, we're moving on. Some of the specialty tools are, there's this really awesome contraption here. Look at that. That thing's amazing. That holds down the low reverse piston way down here at the very back of the case. You need that to pop a snap ring out so that you can get the piston out. You're going to blow pressure up through the valve body. We'll get to that later. It gets that out. That makes it amazingly easy. I've seen on YouTube, they make these things out of wood, out of metal, out of all kinds of stuff, piece ball thread, whatever. I got this off of Amazon for, I think, 20 bucks. And I've rebuilt 5 trannies with it. No problems. This particular one has something interesting. On this input shaft, there are 4 Teflon seals that go down. We'll get to that. And you want this. This right here sits on top of the shaft and allows you to put new Teflon seals on there and roll them down. And in doing so, it stretches them out to go over the shaft. And once you get them down there, what are you going to do? This device. Little tapered cone in there, really nice, awesome thing. You put that down on the shaft and this resizes it. Now once you do that, it resizes it back down onto the output shaft so the pressure will go around the actual input shaft here and control transmission shifts, 1-2 shift solenoids, all the other fun stuff. Now, other than that and regular hand tools, I will tear down and rebuild this transmission. There are some things I'm going to cheat with because, well, I can and I don't have the money for parts. Whole reason I am not just going out and buying one, which there are plenty of manufacturers that supply excellent automatic transmissions with warranties. Transtar, Monster Transmission. You can go to Summit Racing, Jegs, anybody. You can get an automatic transmission rebuilt with a warranty really relatively cheap anymore. $1,500 to $2,500. That's a really good price. The Rev doesn't got that kind of money right now because I have fence now, and my cows and my horses have more grass to eat, well, when it decides to grow again. But anyway, I'm just utilizing my acreage. So, what we got here is a core. That's the one I pulled out. All that mechanical failure I had is in this case. There's also some things in this case that had me worried. So I went to a really cool guy in T-Town, big old town right next to me, and bought a core transmission from him. Now, if you don't know what a core is, it's literally core. This is a core transmission. This is not, I'm going to buy it and throw it in. This tranny is not working right. Something's wrong with it. Clutches, something, don't know. But it looks like it's relatively all right. It looks like it doesn't have any problems. Maybe there's no issues or whatsoever involved with it. But you'll sell it to somebody, relatively cheap price, because it's parts. You needed parts. This is a parts transmission. Now you can look up the identification codes, and then you can go in there and verify what they are. There's usually a plate right here on top, and there's one missing. If it's a truck with a 4-wheel drive, it's got a K, because I'm mainly focusing on GM transmissions right now. I know this is an electronic 4L60E and the correct year, because here's a servo and the servo cover. The electronic connector is correct. It's got this lovely M30 number right here. This 22 number right here. That's a big one. There's no vacuum modulator back here. There's no centrifugal governor over here. And all there is a shift solenoid, and there's not a weird electronic bracket that controls all that shift fun stuff. Also, it's got this electronic speedo control instead of a regular gear-driven speedometer control. Don't know how that fly got in here. Also, you can tell it's been sitting around. But a really good core. I got a really good price. Anywhere from $75 to $150 for a good core. For a 2-wheel drive, Four-wheel drive models, sometimes they want a little bit more because it's kind of a specialty thing, because this output shaft on a four-wheel drive model is going to be different length. Sometimes they're different splines depending on what kind of transfer case you got to run into. Not that I know anything about that, but there's an SM465 going into a new process. I believe that's a 208. I know it's not a heavy duty one. It's enough for flat top. It's for pulling hay, getting trailers out of the mud, taking care of horses, taking care of cattle. So build it for what you're utilizing for. But this is going in Jesse's truck. Now we're going to have to get a rebuild transmission, or we're going to have to rebuild it ourselves. Those are your choices. The Rev, he's rebuilding it because I am cheap. Always cheap. Now there's some things you need to know about that lovely transmission. This right here is a Sun shell gear. Planetary sits inside of there. This actually actuates and controls it. There's a Sun gear that goes through the bottom of this right here. And this is a Sonex replacement. It has got a hardened gear set right here that is welded in. And then it's got this really cool retainer on it. It is beefed up. This is a common failure point. This will either strip the sun gear will be fine, and this will strip and it'll just turn and you'll lose all your forward gears except for first gear and maybe lose reverse, or it'll completely break in half and shatter a planetary set. That didn't happen with the Jess's transmission. Now when you order them, you want to order new retainers, new bearings, everything else that goes with them. They actually sell them in sets on Summit. I'm not getting any advertisement from them. I'm just letting you know who I go with. Some other fun stuff. Corvette servos. You need Corvette servos. They make these awesome things. These are pinless accumulator sets. You got one for the first and second gear and for the second and third gear. This helps hold line pressure on the clutch packs so that they do not slip. There's also another common failure point. One, it's your servo. Weak servo causes slippage, causes things to heat up, burns up your band. The accumulators, those are weak. You can replace those with pinless ones so they don't wear out in the piston bore and cause slippage and leakage and everything else. The Sun shell gear, that's got a weak point in it. And inside this torque converter, there's what's called a TCC solenoid. And it sits inside the valve body. In fact, there's a valve body right there. We'll get to that when we tear into it. Now inside there, it's actuating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it starts to wear out inside that aluminum body. There's two fixes for it. One, you can get the reamer tool. You go in, you ream it, you put in a bigger piston. You get a different spring set. Everything's fixed. She's beautiful. Two is the low buck method, but works just fine. Most quality rebuild kits will have in them the spring replacement. And you get all kinds of parts in your rebuild kits. Not that one. Not that one. Those are those Teflon seals I was talking about. These are accumulator O-rings. Check balls for your valve body. This right here, this lovely spring. This is the bypass for the TCC solenoid problem. Now that valve regulator spring, you can either ream it out or put a bigger spring in it. The bigger spring will keep it from actuating. Problem solved. I think it's an 1890 trouble code. Now in it you get piston lip seals. You get some other larger seals with the case seals, tail shaft seals. This right here is a servo spring. Got some more gaskets, a bunch of your hard parts, filters, and other fun stuff. Seals. Now I went with a Pioneer. Really doesn't matter because this is not going to get a lot of power. I'm not modifying the motor. Jeez, I can't talk today. What I am doing, all this is a 350. I'm going to beef it up to handle pulling a horse trailer every now and again. Other than that, flat top's taking care of it. Valve body gaskets, those are awesome. Another seal, got to have those. Most of them come with instructions, they're great. And then you'll get your clutches and steels. And these are Alto, clutches and steels, which are really good. They're not bad. If you're building a race tranny, you will get with that later. And by the way, I hate automatic transmissions. One other thing I'm doing is I'm putting a shift modifier in there. This is a B&M shift improvement kit. We are going to calibrate this bad boy for towing because I want it to handle higher line pressure and heat problems and shift just a hair faster when it's pulling a trailer. Now with that, with the fixes, with the Corvette parts that'll help hold line pressure longer and everything else, and the beefed up internals, if you have a catastrophic failure in an automatic transmission, there's another thing you're going to have to look at. It sits right here. My friend, the torque converter. Torque converter is kind of a misnomer. It's a torque multiplier. It takes power off the engine through the flex plate. Torque converter is bolted to it. Takes hydraulic fluid in there, multiplies the force of that fluid to drive this input shaft and this pump. This pump builds up the pressure, goes through the bodies, the valve body, goes through the channeling inside the transmission, depending on what gear selecting you're in, where it's at in the transmission shift point, what RPMs you're pulling based on the load rating. This is when people start going, oh, transmissions, it's too much. No, it's easy. You've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 torque converter lockup. That's all there is to it. It's not super overcomplicated, but people will make it that way. Now, if you ever want to know why a transmission overhaul costs so much, it's because it's worth it. It really is. You want a truck to last, you want a car to last, you want to build race stuff, you want to build stuff that's got repeatability, you're going to pay for better parts and somebody's technical expertise. I'm going to help you guys kind of learn on your own. Because, well, everybody needs to learn. What we're going to do with this core right here is I'm going to tear it down and rebuild it. Because I saw some stuff in this case that had me worried. This transmission was previously overhauled. When I looked for the snap ring that retains the sun shell gear in, I couldn't find it. That planetary said it walked, it tore up the retainer that it rides in. That worried me. Don't mind the battery. I have problems with batteries. They die on me. Also in this case, there is a check ball that's supposed to have retainer clips in it. They're missing. So whoever rebuilt this did not put that back together either. I also see some galling inside the case and some other stuff that I just don't like. I knew it when I bought the truck. It was kind of one of my negotiation points. That's why you're going to find most 90 models, Chevys, Fords, everything else fairly cheap. Is 2 reasons on a Chevy for sure. Transmission issues with automatics and electrical problems. They were notorious for electrical problems. It's ground issues. Get a wiring diagram, chase down the grounds, ground everything, she'll work beautiful. Transmission problems, I can't help you. They had issues. Some of them last forever. Nobody ever has a problem with them. Some of them was somebody's Monday and they weren't feeling it. And they didn't put it together right. Anyway, it's turbo hydromatic 4L60E. Let's start tearing into it. 4L60E, you're going to see this lovely number right here. I'm going to flip around this book. 4L60E. 4 is the amount of gears. L stands for lateral. If it was T, it would mean transverse. So that's a front wheel drive. Or if you're fancy and you got a Ford GT, it's the rear. 60 is the power rating, particularly on a truck or anything else. This is medium rating. An 80 is the high rating. E stands for electronic. That's that lovely plug over here. This is an electronically controlled valve body. Does not rely on vacuum modulation or a governor anymore. It's all controlled electronically by the computer inside of the vehicle. Lots of vehicles ran these. They had all kinds of fun. But we're going to tear into this. All right. First things first. Buy tools. Buy tools as you go. You're going to see I have some name brand stuff. I have some Max, some Snap-on, some other good stuff. And then I have Harbor Freight stuff. That's because I've had to do what I've had to do to get stuff done. I've made tools. I've done stuff. Now, just because you can't afford it doesn't mean you can't do it. The whole point about being able to adapt and overcome is to have your ingenuity be able to get through stuff. Back in the day, they called it jerry-rigging. I don't even know why. These are just people that found solutions to problems. If I've got to get through stuff and I can't afford the part, or the part's outside of town and I've got to have this piece of equipment running, I will make what I need to get it going. Now, the proper thing to do is to go back and fix it correctly later if you did something not correct. But generally what we're only going to really modify around here is tools. And I use tools in creative ways to get things done. First things first, you know you got a transmission problem. You've done your diagnostics. You're thinking you've got an internal problem. You're generally going to remove the transmission from the vehicle. It's easier. These are heavy. Get some help. The Rev's back is trash. I had help putting this up on here, and as I tear it apart, it's going to get lighter. When I put it back together, I'm going to have help getting it down and putting it back in. This is not a macho thing. I am not that old. My back is gone. Standing for more than a couple hours kills me. And I work out every day, not that you can tell, but that's just to keep my back in shape. I ain't trying to be fit. You don't want to be at that part. You hear your parents tell you not to hurt your back? They weren't lying. I found that out too late. First things first, you're going to crack this baby open. We're going to start to investigate. The difference between a technician and a parts changer is parts changer just knows how to take off and replace. R&R. An actual technician is a investigator. Old dipstick tube. We don't need that. We're going to pull that out. We'll have that later. We're going to use that for the example. Don't want to tear this up. We're going to get to that later. I'm going to show you how to get into that. You want to make sure your lines are disconnected. You don't want to roll it over and smash them. It's not a good thing. Inspect the case. Look for cracks. Look for anything that's busted. Look for any ears that are smashed or broken. If these are broken and you try to torque on it and you just put a bolt and a washer in there, it's not going to hold. Can you aluminum weld it? You sure can. Do you want to? No. Once these cases go, they're pretty well gone. This aluminum's not high strength. It's good, but it's not great. You have a pan that holds the filter and everything else in here. By the way, you see the Rev with gloves on. This is messy. And it usually stinks. And the more burnt the fluid, the worse it stinks. That generally tells you the condition. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to flip it up. Oh, there she went. Just puked her guts. So, I got water sitting in it. That's a great sign. But we're not at triple homicide yet. Remember, tool modification is outstanding. What I'm going to do, so I've got a squeegee right here. I'm going to take this. I'm just going to grab my water here, which is now contaminated with transmission fluid. And I'll be disposing of that in an awesome way here later. So now I know it sat outside at some point in time without a dipstick in it. Oh, how the investigations are going. So now I'm going to move my bucket here and try to tip it up this way. Let's see if I can get some of this water out. There we go. Oh yeah, that'd have been fun if I cracked it up there. That was an awful lot of water. You know, the Rev's Bever 3/4, I borrowed her van to go get this. I'm kind of glad this didn't puke its guts out. I was more worried about a triple homicide, not a milkshake. Oh man, that's... Well, you tell this ain't scripted. There we go, now we're getting this more oil. And it is milk-shaped. But I don't see the telltale signs of the scary stuff. We'll get to that when we crack this case open. I'm going to give her a little more delete. Oh yeah, there we go. May edit this out. So thick and juicy. Mind you, I'm not hurting myself. I'm using mechanical leverage to hold this up. Okay, I'm going to roll this all the way up on the case. I'm making sure not to damage the input shaft when I roll it. Oh yeah, now we got heavy. It'll hurt real yellow on that one. Alright, let me get the rest of the water off here so I can get this pan off of here. These lovely stainless steel tables, I found this from a food manufacturing plant. They were just going to get rid of them for scrap stainless steel. Great for transmissions. Also anything else you work on. I've built tables out of wood, out of plate steel and angle iron. Stainless is awesome because you just wipe it down and keep moving. It's great. Alrighty, well, that's going well. By the way, there's dryall and all the other chemical absorbents are just Kitty litter from Walmart. There we go. All that. Well, let's let the blood bath begin. Yep, this will be great. Roll this over on its side. Don't worry, that's the table. It's fine. I'm gonna roll it all the way up. Should you got just a little bit more. Nope, that was it. All right. Pan bolts are my friend. By the way, these transmissions are all metric. Everything on here is metric. Pan bolts, this is a 13 millimeter. I'm gonna go through here. You're gonna see me not using impacts. Aluminum is soft. Aluminum strips. If you've ever helicoiled anything, you don't want to do that. If you want to learn how to helicoil, I can show you. I had to do it to my Honda. Use a Honda to commute with. They use an aluminum oil pan. IPM like a BM, often. And when I do that, when you change oil that often, and as much as I drive, because I live in the country, but I work in the city, I go through a lot, and I drive a lot, change my oil a lot. I do not do extended intervals. I don't believe in it. By the way, right off the bat, get a box for your small parts. There's only so many in here. You want to put all your small parts in one place so you can find them later. Also, it makes it helpful when you're cleaning. Oh yeah, we're having fun. I'll show you one specialty tool I got that I really like. There she is. This bad boy. Man, these are awesome. When you don't want to use an actual electric or impact or anything that's going to tear something up, this is what you want to use. I also have hand crank drills from my grandfather. I love old tools. They're awesome. I love mechanical things. They're awesome. Very left brain when it comes to logical stuff. Anyway, we're going to go through, we're going to take this whole thing out. I may edit this to go faster. Woo-hoo. Don't worry, all of them are roughly the same. You can tell this came from a truck. It has a deep pan. Cars usually had shallow pans. And as the years kind of went up, we changed how we did everything. Now we have 10-speed transmissions and fun stuff. The hunt for gears constantly. I'm gonna warn you right now, when you open this case, you'll have a triple homicide. It's tranny fluid, it's blood everywhere. It's an oil pan, it's usually oil, parts, all kinds of other things. Do not be in a hurry to dump it. You want to take your time, you want to look at everything on the inside. It's going to tell you a lot of things that are going on in this transmission. Either the scary things or the normal things. Where is normal? These are designed to be worn. They do not last forever. Everything breaks down. It's thermodynamics. Just happens. Now what's normal or not, that's the difference. If you're changing your transmission fluid, used to be every 2 years or every 24,000 miles. It goes synthetics, all that other stuff. I still go with the whole 2 years every 24,000 miles, whichever comes first. Sometimes it's longer, but if it sits out exposed to atmosphere, it's going to pick up moisture from the atmosphere. Apparently this one picked up all the moisture from Louisiana because it was full of water. Okay, be careful when you move this, you don't want to warp it. I've got a feeling somebody shellacked this bad boy on. Nope, not that. All right, we're gonna flip her over. I'm gonna look inside this pan. What I see right here is a black material. That is burnt friction material. If the fluid was still clean and clear, this would be a different color. Put my finger through it. Smell it. It's burnt. That's all right. I knew this transmission was a core transmission. I don't think it was flooded. It looks like it was left outside open. Maybe the dipstick was open, because I don't see a lot of corrosion. I don't see anything else. What I'm looking for are chunks of metal, especially here in the filter medium. I don't see any large chunks of metal. If it was a normal transmission, I'd be looking for metallic flakes, glitter. I'll know real quick when I pop this off. And be very careful with the valve body. Don't want to hurt it. Lift this up. I'll pour this out into, oh, hey, there we go. Okay. This one still has some water in it. I don't hear metal. I don't see metal. That's good. Probably didn't have a really bad internal damage problem. This may just be normal wear. From what it smells like, it's very burnt. It is probably very much mechanical wear. Okay, I'm not seeing anything that is scaring me right now. That's a good thing. Now, generally what I would do is I would have dropped this pan to get the fluid out so I didn't have all the fluid sloshing and, you know, having a bloodbath on me. I will put the pan back on. And I'm going to now put that on my bell housing. All right. So I'll make sure all my water's out of there. I don't want any more raining on me. I'm gonna grab 4 bolts, slap this bad boy back on here so I don't hurt any of the internals. You're gonna see me cleaning myself a lot. I try to keep stuff clean even though you look at the Rev's garage and it is filthy. What happens when you do 12 things at once? If I was building a motor or something else, I would have been insane keeping this place clean. There we go. Put it on right. And do the 4 corners method. At least I know it won't puke much more on me. Much more. It's still me. We're still in disassembly mode. We're gonna have 1 phase of disassembly so we can start cleaning parts and investigate the rest of the hard parts. Step 2 will be tear down. Step 3 will be rebuilding and measuring. Step 4 will be reinstallation and break-in. Hopefully step 5 is we move on to my next project, which is getting flat top back up and running. Just needs to be tight, not super tight. I just don't want to bend the pan. Doing this just to save my valve body from having any kind of damage. So far so good, not scared. By the way, I got a good deal on this core, so don't feel bad about this. Okay, sliding, rolling, sliding. Okay, I'm gonna do this so I don't hurt myself. There we go. Feel a little too zealous on that rolling. I may have a tranny in my lap. Again, the rest back, not that great. Really don't want to hurt myself. And me and the squeegee are gonna be freaking rocking today. This thing is puking its guts out. Just not cool. You know what? Merry Christmas. You're in the paint. Next up, I'm going to pull the speed sensor out. Careful not to damage it. That is a 10 millimeter. That is not a 10 millimeter. That is a 10 millimeter. These usually don't come out easy. I don't know why. They just get stuck. By the way, keeping a clean, neat, organized work area keeps you from hunting from tools. One day, I'm going to remember this stuff. One day. Not today. Small parts, small part box. All right, flathead screwdriver. Best friend in this. My cheap China made one. Gonna get a little pry off of there, a little over there. Just want to make sure it moves out of the way. You get in there, kind of give it a little left-right turn. It's pried up enough that it's no longer pinching down the sensor. So to be able to come off, there it goes, right there. Don't pry it out. Grab a pair of needle nose, reach up in here and just get a little wiggle. A little wiggle, right here on the metal. Right here on the metal. Ah, jeez. Guess what? It's stuck. Pull that out. We're going to look for a lot of wear. If you open it up and see metal shavings all over it, that's normal. This is a magnet. It's picked up most of the metal shavings that are in the transmission. That is wear. Can't see it because I'm wearing a black glove. But it's thick, it's black, it's nasty. Don't worry about it. We're going to fix it. Next thing, I believe these are 13 millimeters as well. Take your tail shaft housing off first. Depends on how you want to do it. You can take your seal off now, you can take your seal off later. There's a bushing in here you're going to have to drive out and put back in. However you want to do it. Rev probably knows better. That's a 15. Now I remember. I'm going to grab a 1/2 inch, guys. Oh, it's probably got the cheese on it. Again, no impacts. Use hand tools. Also, just like with everything else, take your time, investigate, check threads, make sure they're not stripped. If you don't want to re-strip something, you could have the fun like I did when I was pulling out a Jess truck. Torque converter. Somebody put the torque converter bolts in with red Loctite. Don't ever use red Loctite for a torque converter. Blue Loctite. You want to be able to get it out. Had to sit there for 20 minutes with a torch on each bolt. That's ridiculous. Trying to run a torch on that torque converter weakens it. I don't like, not on the torque for the flex plate. Cause metal fatigue. I don't like to do that, especially with something that has to flex a lot. I don't want to change its spring tension and how it reacts. A lot of people are going to tell you it doesn't make that big a difference. Torquing your brakes makes that big a difference. So does this. By the way, if you didn't know that, torquing your lug nuts, torquing your brakes, everything can keep it from warping or running and operating fine. Specs are important. Okay, last bolt. I'm just going to pry down a little bit, pry up. There she goes. It's held in by an O-ring. I got some sludge in here, it's not bad. No metal shavings. I got some dirt. Somebody stood it up in the dirt, that's fine. I will drive that bushing out that's in there. Hard to see. You can see it from the back. This one has been replaced. It's got a brass one in it, so at least they had a leak at some point. Put that there. Put my soft parts there. Be careful with this gear. Be careful with the shell here. Got a little dirt. That's awesome. Now the fun part. Servo. There will be transmission fluid in the servo. Now, one thing I will check, this is going to tell me how the bearings are on the inside. I'm going to shake this. Forward and backwards play is normal. Up and down, left and right play is not. That's the whole case moving. Just a little bit of play. Just a little. Same with the input. Really tight, feels good. If it was knocking around in there, I would know it has an internal problem. Take it, give her the rock up. There she goes. There's a snap ring in here. Take your trusty flathead screwdriver. Get in there. Pry it up. And there she goes. Then I just take it and chase it around. Comes all the way around. Boom. She's out. Put it in your small parts. Now, if you got a pick set, pull it out. If you don't, go to Harbor Freight. They're cheap. $3-4. Sometimes they're only $1 on sale. They're not expensive. I bought some fancy ones to do the lip seals later. I'll show you what they are. They're basically overgrown dildos. What we're going to do is we're going to take a pair of channel locks and we're going to slide the case back and forth a little bit. Free it up there. There she goes. All right. I'm going to work it, work it, work it. Uh-oh, it stopped. What do? There's a seal on the inside. Right here. It's usually blue. Take your pick, get up underneath that seal, lift it up, rotate it out. She'll come right out. Just get up underneath it, grab that seal, grab it, get it out the hole. You're going to start to rotate it. And sometimes I can do this without tearing them, sometimes I can't. Take this and turn it while I do it. There she goes. And I managed not to tear up my seal. You got your servo pistons, and they each in turn have lip rings in them. We're going to be replacing these with Corvette servos, just because they'll hold the line pressure a little bit longer. Put these off to the side on your table. You're going to have an E-clip pin in here. You have another piston set. That needs to come out. They usually all come out pretty easy. This one wants the E-clip removed. So we're going to pop it out. Here's your E-clip. We're going to pull the spring out in the retainer. We're try to get the servo to come off, and it does not want to come off. Brass, not metal. Love tap. Actually, brass is a metal, not steel. There she goes. Alright. Okay, she comes out. You've got two more sets there. Oh, there she goes, puking her guts out. She's got a little blood between those seals. There's pistons everywhere in there. You don't want to gall that aluminum. I'm going to take the servo spring out, move that to the side, looking in there. Normal fatigue and wear. I'm going to pop this back down on there. I'm going to put my E-clip back in there because I don't want to lose it, because that's a pain. You can usually get this on with your finger, and I just did in a miracle. I'm going to pull my tranny fluid out. I'm going to put my servo over here as an assembly. She's got fluid in her. She's fun. Before you go dropping this thing and flipping her over again, you want to try not to flip it too much. In fact, what I'm going to do, I want to catch this before it does that. It wants to puke, let it. There it goes. Last bit of that. There I go, hurting my back, so that wasn't going to hurt. All right. This clip right here, it's got 4 little tangs on it. Take this bad boy, reach in there, just pry them back a little bit. Work all of them around. Sometimes you can do it with a flathead screwdriver, because this one's been in the dirt. I think this one's set out in the yard. Pry them back, push down. Now, I may have to move those clips a couple times because they like to catch. You want it to go down inside the case. You're not pushing it all the way through yet. You're just working it in there. Let's see. There she goes. Just down in there. Stop there. Don't knock it through. There's stuff on the backside. I am seeing clean tranny flow, which is kind of odd. I think somebody tried to save it with a last minute PM that did no good. Okay, here's fun stuff. Let's flip it over so you can see it. Back over to the valve body. My friend, the valve body. Make sure you can see that well. Oh yeah, that's good. In fact, I could probably. No, didn't want. Oh, there we go. All right. Look at me. Outstanding. All right. We're gonna pop this bad boy off again. This time we're taking the valve body off. A couple processes to do that. Now you can leave it all intact, or you can pop it off now. Doesn't matter. It's coming apart. You got to remove the check balls. You got to clean all the passages out. You got to check the springs, all the pistons. You're going to take it apart. Don't be scared. It looks like a crazy brain. It's not that difficult. You can rebuild a carburetor. You can rebuild a transmission. In fact, I've had people tell me that automatics are easier than manuals. I disagree. You just don't need a press for an automatic. You need a press for manuals. Pan off. Woo. Don't let her go nowhere. We need that in a minute. This gasket, actually a decent one. Trash. Moving on. At the front of the case, there are two 10mm bolts. they're retaining the TCC solenoid. It's the electric solenoid that actuates the torque converter valve up inside of the pump housing. If you want to move this pump housing out, that has to move. You have to take the valve housing off, the valve body housing off anyway to get a pin that is retaining and holding the band inside off, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So I'm going to grab my little one because you're going to need an 8mm and a 10mm. We are going to have the most fun popping these bad boys off. Take this, your pick, very carefully unhook the electronic solenoids. Do not pull hard, pull easy, pop them off. They're all going to go back roughly right where they're at. GM's really good about making harnesses that only go a certain way, thankfully. Now on the front of this harness, you cannot remove the solenoid from the harness, it's hardwired. But there's another solenoid on the front of the body that is just screwed in with screwed-in connectors. You just take that and unscrew it, pull your wire off. I suggest you take a picture of it. This one is tan to tan and white to tan, which is just awesome. That won't be confusing at all. It's usually tan to green. Anyway, we'll get there. I can pull that wire out. I'm going to put them back together so I can find them later. I just want that wiring off because I'm going to pull this harness away. I'll pull a solenoid out and I can pop the whole harness out. The solenoid's held on to 10mm. Grab that. Grab this. Run those out real quick. Now there is a specialty tool for taking out the pump. It sits on the nose of the pump. It pulls it out. It's really nice and fancy. It's like a little press. It is absolutely cool. The Rev doesn't have that tool. So I'm going to show you how to do it with a flathead screwdriver. I'm prying up underneath the ear. I'll pop it out. It's got an O-ring that retains it. Grab this harness over here. Unplug that. I'm going to flop it over the side for right now until I take this valve body off. Now, right now I can unbolt it. I can pull the pump out, but I'm not going to be able to get the whole gear set out. Yay! Valve body. There are check balls in here. They're going to roll out. Remember I told you you need your specs in your books? The book will tell you exactly where the check balls go. But then if you're putting shift kit in, you may be changing that as well. Start from the outside in, the inside out, do a star pattern. However you do it to do it. I usually start from the inside, work my way out. Use my right hand, so I'm not left-handed. Just working in a star pattern. Actually, I need to use our extra. Done. There we go. Just gonna loosen them. You'll know when they're 8mm because the 10 won't fit. That's 13. That is your park claw actuator. We're going to get to that here in a minute. Now, don't do all your 10mm and leave your 8s. You don't want to work nothing. Don't take your accumulator apart yet. Got my little 8mm here. And I'm going to grab this one, go on back to the housing, and these 4. Nope, it's just those 2. These 2. Everybody has a camera phone now. They are outstanding. I suggest, if your memory's not that great, most people's aren't, take pictures as you go. It'll help. Or if you do like I do a lot, put a video on from YouTube. Hit pause. Man, they come in handy. I sure do like to be able to find out where stuff goes. And I learn from people off YouTube as well. Through there. This bad boy out. This bad boy out. These are long-winded, by the way. Geez, I'm jiggling as much as this transmission is. For all my disciples, you're thinking, this is too much. I'm scared. I'm not sure I can do all this. You can. Take your time. Mark everything as you go. Verify what you're doing. Make sure you got help. Let's talk about tools and stuff. You got a mechanic friend. You realize what you're doing when you're asking them for tools. You're basically asking them for their lives. Now I know what you're thinking. Red, you're going a little overboard on that one. No, I'm not. If you take a man's millstone, you take his life. If you take away a man makes his living from him, you take his life. That's why most mechanics will not lend their tools out. They can't afford to be without their ability to provide. And if tools are so cheap and not a big deal, why didn't you go buy one? Now, most mechanics have no problem helping you diagnose things. They will help you walk through stuff. They will tell you stuff in general, but it is their livelihood. So if you got a friend that's a mechanic, they usually would have no problem if you said, hey, I got this problem. I don't have the money to take it to the mechanic right now. What do you suggest? What do you think's wrong with it? How should I diagnose it? Where do I look this up at? Most of them will tell you exactly where, how, and why, which is awesome. By the way, I always put the valve body back in the pan. Okay, make sure they're all out. See, there's one that's not. But if you're asking for free work from somebody, would you work for free? Most people won't. But they're my friend. Well, most people will help out a friend. You better help out back. It's just being good and neighborly. Somebody comes over and asks me for help, and I ask them for help, and we help each other, don't ever